Well, here we are live on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Friday night. Good evening, everyone. Joe Rayo here, Joe Rayo there, Joe Chaffee here, and of course, all about Tropical
Oh,
Storm Fay, Mr. Rayo.
sorry about that, Joe.
That's all right. Just a little audio issues. We all have those kind of issues from time to time. Woke up this morning and looked at everything, and everything seemed to be on course. Faye actually turned out to be a bit of an outperformer, certainly for the folks in Jersey and in eastern Pennsylvania, where the heavy rains, which, as we talked about the last couple of days, it was going to be basically west and northwest of the center, which is where the heavy rains were, and the track of Fay is right along the New Jersey coast. At 5 o'clock, it was 90 miles south of New York City. The center was 90 miles south of New York City. So now it's about 60 miles or so south of New York City. And it for a July 10th tropical storm, not too shabby.
No, the earliest that we've ever had, or the earliest we've ever gone all the way up to the F on the list in terms of tropical cyclone activity. And who knows? We may be challenging 2005. Although, Joe, sometimes you think that that's going to happen, and then all of a sudden, for
It shuts
reasons
off.
beyond our knowledge, we just suddenly see everything kind of shut off for a while, and maybe we might be in for something like that, maybe later this month or in August or whatever, because it really is crazy to see so much activity already this early in the season.
You know, you got to give kudos to the GFS, because the GFS, again, in its long range, picked this out in one form or another back many days ago. And
Right.
it seems to really be on a hot streak now with these tropical systems. We saw it happen with the May storms. We saw it happen with the June tropical systems. And it seemed to outperform the other global models, the European in particular, and it's done it again. So maybe they did some kind of, they did a little tweaking along the way. Perhaps the last upgrade finally took after they corrected for all the cold bias. But it's really done very well.
And a couple of people on my Facebook page were looking at my forecast I put out for tonight, and they said, your wind outlook is quite a bit below what a lot of the other forecasts have been indicating. And my simple reasoning is that with Fay coming northward, it's kind of like the eye of a hurricane. It's going to be the eye of the storm when that system gets practically on top of the tri-state area late this evening or around midnight. I don't see any strong wind gusts happening. I
Well,
think actually the winds will diminish quite a bit.
except along the immediate coast. And when I say the immediate coast, I'm thinking practically on the beaches. Wind was never a big issue with this. There's this is something that you and I have talked about from time to time, and it's very frustrating because you fight an audience that forecast shops. And by that I mean they watch everybody and they just kind of cherry pick what they like from each person and then sort of mesh it into one glob. And I think there's many times in with these sorts of systems, there's this reflexive, what I would call a reflexive forecast. There's a tropical storm, top winds are 50 or 60 miles an hour. Therefore, everybody's going to get 60-mile-an-hour winds. It doesn't work that way. Uh, there's a tropical storm, everybody's going to get 2 to 6 inches of rain. It doesn't work that way. As it turned out, east of the track, east of the center, and basically from western Long Island, if you go western Long Island westward, that's probably where the cutoff was. But once you get out of Nassau County, and particularly when you went through Suffolk County, what I saw today, really hardly any rain up until about 3 o'clock this afternoon. And then we got into this one band that came up, which is what the model had. You had this just spiral band that just sort of came up. And we had some squally rain, some squally heavy rains. We had some gusts of wind, got particularly gusty down near the shore. But in terms of widespread rain and widespread wind, that was never really in the cards. Now, in New Jersey, it was a different story because the whole state was west of the track. So the whole state got hammered with heavy rain, and particularly central and south Jersey. There was flash flooding all over the place. I think the whole state of New Jersey right now is under a flood warning. So you can't forecast shop. You can't cherry pick the stuff you want. It's very important. You focus on your own area and pay particularly close attention to the specifics regarding your own area and not broad brush it.
Yeah, and a friend of mine, Alan Seltzer, who lives out in Mauritius, just pinged me and said very little rain and wind here. Uh, oh no, I think that's Yiddish. I'm not going to try. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce what he wrote, but I think it means something to the effect like, "Oh darn it." Dennis Cassia replying to Alan Seltzer saying same thing here in Monroe, Connecticut. Just a few showers, and Pete Bergman in Patchogue saying we've hardly had anything. So, out in Eastern Long Island, as compared to what I have, and it's been pouring down here for quite a while now.
Right.
And New York City, I think they've had like 2.5 inches of rain, and points west and south of New York, they've had 3, 4, even 5 inches. I mean, eastern sections of Long Island have had only a little bit of wetness this afternoon.
Well, remember we showed one of the model QPFs yesterday, which had less than a quarter of an inch of rain from central Long Island east. And that
Right.
reflected the fact that if you were on the east side, you were really going to be dependent on whatever bands were coming up from the south, these spiral bands that, in between, sometimes you could get the sun to come out. And meanwhile, to the west, it was more like a nor'easter, in the sense that you had this blanket area of heavy rain this morning that ran from Delaware and eastern Maryland and ran all the way up into central New Jersey and southeastern PA. So I noticed a few of you on the chat board, by the way. Pamela Gasper, you were asking about heavy rains for the Lehigh Valley, and what we'll do, Pamela, I'll bring up the radars. We can take a look at what's going on right now, see what's fallen, and then kind of go from there in terms of what is left to happen. So I'm going to start with the Upton radar. Mr. Rayo, does that work for you?
It works for me.
So
Yeah.
I've got the Upton radar up here, and let me just give it a quick refresh. And you can see that spiral band that I was talking about, Joe. It now has moved north of Long Island, so there's very little there. That area of rain now that's over you. That's coming from southwest Connecticut, so it's moving southeast northwest. The heavy rains in New Jersey, except for a few patchy leftover showers now in North Jersey, that's done. So the bulk of the precip is over with. Even though the center is still to our south, we're starting to see Fay. I guess the best way to describe it is it's spreading out somewhat. So it's not quite as tight a system as it was earlier today. It's spreading out, starting to circulation interacting with the land and the colder water. So we're way past its peak, and things should start improving as we go through the rest of the evening and tonight.
And Mrs. Rayo just mentioned that in our little rain bucket here in Putnam County, we have 0.75. It's taken the better part of the afternoon to get there. But when you consider that we only had like 0.11 at around 2 o'clock this afternoon, so it's coming. It's not torrential, but the amount of rainfall has been coming at a good steady clip for the last several hours.
All right, I'm going to go to the full loop here, and then we're going to pick on a few other spots. Okay, so there we go. So that concentration of rain, Joe, that I just was talking about from earlier, is now in eastern Pennsylvania, and almost about as far west as Williamsport. Looks like where the back edge is. And there's heavy rain that is in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. So that area is going to wait for the center to move on northward through upstate New York. So it looks like that rain goes up toward upstate New York, up along I-81, basically, and heads up north from there. So areas to the east now are just going to deal with whatever bands are coming off the ocean. And it looks like that the one that's over eastern Long Island, southwest Connecticut, and over you, that looks like it's the last one.
Yeah, I think I even said on my own YouTube channel update at about 5 o'clock this afternoon. I said pretty much after 8 o'clock, we're just going to be seeing here in the Hudson Valley just the bare leftovers, some scattered showers. And I said between midnight and 2 a.m. that'll be it as far as precip is concerned with this system. I wouldn't even be surprised, Joe, if tomorrow morning we actually saw a little bit of sunshine before the next disturbance, an upper level disturbance, comes in from the west. In fact, you could already see on the radar tonight
Yeah,
on the screen the
that's
next
that.
panel.
It's interesting. You see how this almost, this is the next upper. This is the upper trough at shortwave, and we showed that 999 surface low that's down in Ohio as that shortwave dropped in, and you see how those thunderstorms are moving west to east as that upper trough starts to swing eastward, and meanwhile the upper system that reflects Fay is continuing to move almost straight south to north here. So it's just kind of like a lever, and it's given it produced the alleyway that was necessary. Whenever we get these tropical storms along the East Coast or hurricanes, you look for what I would describe as the upper air alleyway that sets up in the east. You need that southerly flow along the East Coast to bring these things up, particularly in a case like this, which with something that forms so close to the coast. So you need a mechanism to shoot it up the coast instead of kicking it out to the east. And that mechanism, the upper trough that's producing some rather strong thunderstorms this evening across Lake Erie, eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania, down into West Virginia and western Virginia, where Johnny Quest just picked up a couple of inches of rain from that arm moving to the east. Just a very you look at these things and people sometimes think this sort of stuff is really simple. It's incredibly complex when you look at all the little players out there that are involved in creating a storm and then bringing that storm up the East Coast the way this one did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the newscasters tonight called it a rare July tropical storm, then paused and said for the Northeast. Uh, Initially, when she said a rare July tropical storm, I said, "Are they rare, really?" But then by saying Northeast, I said, "Okay, I'll accept that," because it isn't very often that we do see something like this. Although I was thinking also, Joe, I mentioned uh, Tropical Storm Doria in August of 1971, which took a very similar track to what Fay has taken. There was another storm in September of 1999, Floyd, which really did a number on the Hudson Valley. Some places had over 12 inches of rain from that. And yet there was a third storm I was thinking of, Bertha. I don't remember exactly what year it was. I think maybe it was 95 or 96. And that was like on a Friday night, Saturday morning, just like this one. That too took kind of a south to north trajectory, again, right over the tri-state area. So we've had our fair share, at least in recent years, of storms taking this type of route. But again, July, it is kind of
It's a little
unusual.
yeah. I think July is unusual to see a tropical storm, at least the early part of the month, anyway.
Right.
But we got one. Albany radar is the view I have up. I had the Boston radar view. Didn't really show very much. You can see the Albany radar from what it sees. The rain that Joe is still getting triangled between Peekskill on the south side, Poughkeepsie on the north side, and Middletown on the west side. And then that band extends westward. And you get around Binghamton down to Scranton. You have a more solid area of heavy rains. Let's pull up. We'll go a little bit further to the west. Let's go to Buffalo radar as Joe checks his mail. He's still in the land of AOL. You know that company died about 20 years ago, but no matter. So you see on this radar the eastern on the eastern side the back edge of phase rain, and on the western side you can see the showers and storms that are coming in from the upper trough. I want to try to let's go to central Pennsylvania's radar, State College, and we should be able to see both. Yeah, look at the State College radar, Joe. You look at the thunderstorms in western PA moving uh, eastward, and the rains from Fay are moving westward, and the whole slot in between there just sitting with nothing. It's just really bizarre.
It is. It is. You don't know what if you're right in the middle there. You're looking to your left and you're looking to your right. Like, whoa.
I know exactly where you if you're in looking for at least some rain and you're sitting in that mid zone, you're really missing out on both ends. I'm going to bring up bring up the surface. Here's the wide radar view again, so let me get rid of this, and then let's try the surface map. All right, so it's going to update now and get. I'll put the put the radar on it in a second. Gusts along the shores of Long Island at the moment. You see the wind gusts. I never really saw anything crazy in terms of wind gusts. I didn't pay too close attention to what was going on earlier at the Jersey Shore, but most of the gusts now are between 18 and 25 along the New Jersey shore. There's a 33-mile-an-hour wind gust at Kennedy. You know, I guess I had some gusts up to 30 miles an hour here where I am on the North Shore of Long Island about an hour or so ago. I talked to Bill Goodman briefly earlier, by the way, and he made a point that I was thinking while I was out this afternoon in all of this when it was when we got that first solid band of heavy rain when it came in on the South Shore. I happened to be there when it happened, and he said to me it just felt really strange to be outside with dew points that were in the low 70s, low and middle 70 dew points with a wind. I mean, it literally felt like you could feel the moisture in the air just kind of blowing by you. It was as tropical as you could get up here, and it felt miserable in my
Well,
view. It really felt miserable.
now I'm just mentioning on that particular point, Joe. Tomorrow, not much change. Conservatively, I would say dew points again at or above 70. But looking ahead now, and of course, I wouldn't exactly call this dry, cool, and refreshing, but I think the dew point temperatures on Sunday are going to drop down to about, at least here in the Hudson Valley, like 63, 64. And that normally would be a muggy day, but when you compare it to what we've been subjected to over the last several days, that's a drop of about 5 or 6 points. That may actually feel, even though temperatures on Sunday with sunny to partly cloudy skies may get up close to 90, that still may be semi tolerable or semi comfortable. I don't know how to
Yeah.
what else. Everything is relative,
Well,
but
I got an email from David Carter, who's one of our regular watchers, and he's got a birthday party for his niece on Sunday. Happy birthday, David Carter's niece, who I think may be watching this live stream tonight. And he had said, and this goes with we would usually we like to say which is the better of the 2 weekend days. We've been focusing on Sunday for the last couple of days, and I think it's safe to say that the risk for thunderstorms tomorrow is high. Uh, the risk for thunderstorms on Sunday is pretty low, and it's quite likely that unless there's a pop up somewhere, most of the area on Sunday won't have a shower or a thunderstorm to deal with, and it should be a pretty decent day. So definitely the better of the 2 weekend days. Have the
yeah.
party on Sunday.
Yeah, and interestingly, looking ahead to next week, I think on Tuesday, for example, we may get down close to 60 for the dew point temperature. And sometimes when you look at these long-range models like the GFSX, which gives you dew point temperatures in advance, these are sometimes a bit higher than they end up to be. So, dare I say that maybe on Tuesday we might actually see the dew point temperatures, however briefly, drop into the upper 50s, which again, well, that's certainly comfortable.
You can
It
say
would
it.
be way comfortable if it compared to what we've been through.
You dare say it. The loop tonight, the satellite loop, very impressive. You got the thunderstorms blowing up in eastern Ohio, western PA, down into West Virginia, all the way down to western North Carolina as that upper trough is swinging east. And of course, you see the circulation of Fay. The center, by the way, this morning really tightened up nicely, and you had convection that kind of developed all the way around the center. I think there might have been just a little zap of baroclinic deepening. When I say baroclinic, folks, I mean non-tropical strengthening, the way winter storms strengthen. You get a little zap that gets in there, and I think that's what you saw here with respect to Fay. And it suddenly you had a slew of winds offshore that the recon found this morning of 50 to 60 knots, which is one of the reasons why they upped the winds up to 60 miles an hour at one point. And they had extended the tropical storm warnings down to Delaware because of the fact that all of a sudden they had gales on the northwest side. And that happened very quickly, by the way. So
Yeah.
here it is on the loop. Uh, the circulation goes all the way up into upstate New York and into Maine, where you see the high clouds. And the northward motion is just going to continue. It's going to move right along, and weather conditions are going to improve tonight. So I guess our next focus of attention, as you said, is going to be this weather front for tomorrow. The Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow has a marginal risk of severe weather from southwestern Maine south and west through virtually all of New England to the Hudson Valley, going up north of Albany, south to New York City. Long Island is in it, almost all of New Jersey, except the extreme south, and extreme eastern Pennsylvania on the back edge. So I wonder whether we might have a little slight risk area added to this tomorrow, but I don't know that that really matters in terms of the forecast. I think we could see a couple of thunderstorms tomorrow fire up and get on the strong side.
And of course, if you're underneath one of those thunderstorms, you'll have the strong wind gusts, the heavy rain, the threat of vivid and dangerous lightning. I noticed on the Storm Prediction Center's forecast for tomorrow, in spite of the marginal risk, no mention of possible hail. I guess the atmosphere is just too warm, even aloft, to support much in the way of any frozen activity.
Yeah, well, the upper trough, we were kind of on the edge of this first upper trough that's going by. And you watch it here on our upper air, your shortwave trough that swings through here tomorrow evening. That's this kink that you see right there. Okay, so that is your mechanism in the upper atmosphere. And there's another one. So you got that one and you got this one. And here's your flow, just kind of rolls along across the northern plains and then drops southeastward into the mid-Atlantic states. So you've got these short waves that are going by. So the space in between is where we'll be on Sunday, which is why we won't see much. And then you've got that next trough comes along for Monday, and here it is Monday afternoon, right about there. I don't know if it looks as potent as it did a couple of days ago, but I think this should also be enough. We'll have to watch for the possibility of some storms late in the day Monday as that weather front goes by. And then you'll get your little drop in the dew points that you advertised earlier. I think that'll happen. And then later on next week, Joe, looks like we still have this puzzle. Flat high pressure builds across the southern half of the U.S. With upper highs sitting one in North Carolina, one in Texas, one out in Bermuda, and we're just kind of on the edge of this. So it'll probably mean for very warm, borderline hot, getting here, I think, late in the week, once we get through that little gift of dry air. And then guess what? Another short wave swings along late next weekend, early next week. Not the week that's coming up, but the week that follows, the week of July 20th, bringing
Right.
probably another cold front and maybe a little shot of Canadian dry air. And all of a sudden, Joe, it's July 21st.
Isn't that amazing? If you
If
remember last year on the weekend of July 20th, 21st, we had the hottest stretch of weather we had all summer long. I think we had temperatures that were in the mid and upper 90s at one point last year. Again, right around that 20th, 21st. And the only reason why I remember that is that that was the anniversary of Apollo 11, the 50th anniversary, which everybody was making much ado about last year, and it coincided with a spell of, again, very very hot weather. Whether or not we see something like that this year, and I noticed, Joe, you and Bill Goodman, a few others, I posted on my Facebook page the clipping from the front page of the New York Times. 84 years ago yesterday, we
yes,
had the 106-degree temperature but there was some
People prostrated or
prostrated,
prostated.
and
I thought that
that's
was
the
just
language.
that's so that's so odd of the New York Times. It's so typical.
That's
You
language. That's
you
language
can't
we don't
just
use
say that
anymore.
people were just like fainting on the streets. No, they were prostrating. Okay,
Yeah. Ah.
great.
Did you see also? I don't know if you get a chance. I mean, if you clicked on the headline, you could actually read part of the article. And at Belvedere Castle, where the observation of 106 degrees was made, the meteorologist, I forget his name, it was mentioned in the article, said that actually inside of the observatory, the temperature was 100, or no, it wasn't inside the observatory, it was in the sun that the temperature was measured at 145
Oh,
degrees.
good Lord. Really?
And it was unofficial temperature in Times Square was
You know, if we could have
145.
gotten it up to 185 degrees, I could have at least smoked some short ribs for 2 or 3 hours. So anyhow, here's the GFS. I got the eastern view. I know Ruthless Goat is on. Don't worry, I'll widen this out in just a minute so we can take a look at the rest of the country. But of course, Fay goes by. I see the GFS does bubble up thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and evening. Doesn't do much of anything for Sunday, except some odd pop-ups back in central PA. And then on Monday, it brings a front through and has some showers and thunderstorms late in the afternoon when the cold front goes by. So, I was kind of thinking that maybe Monday with that upper trough, it could be another day with some severe weather around. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and into Thursday, it looks pretty dry in terms of rainfall. We've got a nice little bubble high that comes in for Tuesday and Wednesday, moves out off the coast on Thursday. Next cold front approaches next weekend, and on and on and on it goes. And meanwhile, as Ruthless Goat saying it was over, we're getting to 100 today out in the beauty of Colorado where he is north of Denver. Trying to get this map to load here. With that upper high sandwich and running east-west, it doesn't look like there's much of a break, although maybe around the middle part of next week, looks like some thunderstorms may flare up there in a few places, maybe along about Sunday, and again on Monday, and again on Tuesday. So at least some scattered thunderstorm activity goes on in that area. No tropical systems that I can see on the GFS. Talking about the fact that maybe it goes quiet for a while. Uh, and the last day on the GFS on today's run, Joe, is July 26th. So, but
Hey, before you know it, July will be over with.
yeah, exactly. And just on a wide view here, we'll just take a quick look at the tropics. It really, folks, it would not be a surprise if we wind up seeing the tropics just kind of quiet down a little bit for a while. I have to wait to see what happens when we get into the end of July and August. I'm just kind of looking at what it does in the Atlantic, and I'm not really seeing too much. Going to start to look for the GFS now. It's done so well. I think we're going to be paying a close attention to when it starts firing up systems out there, but nothing seems to be showing up here. So, and to be honest, I really didn't have an opportunity today to really go deep into the long range. So it's just kind of a cursory look here at what's going on as far as the long range and the tropics are concerned. So. I think that pretty much winds it up weather-wise tonight, Joe. We had a very interesting last couple of days in the lead up to this tropical storm. I do have, by the way, let me just see if there's a recon en route at the moment. It's not. Oh, it just reached southern New Jersey. So let me bring this up just really fast, and then we can go to the chat board and do a little Briller Jeopardy and wrap it up for the night. So the recon is not quite up to where the center is, but if you notice on the observation of the wind barbs running up off the New Jersey coast and going up to about Atlantic City, you've got all these westerly winds. Some of the wind barbs are in the 40 to 45 knot range, so that's south of the center. Uh, Check on tropical tidbits. If you go to Aircraft Recon, you can see the the wind profiles of all the missions that occurred today. And in fact, this one from earlier was a very interesting one. This is the one I talked about this morning, where you had this belt of winds. When it got down to a 998 low, you could see the center just kind of meandering northeast and northwestward at times, northeastward at other times. Got to 998, and then all of a sudden, north of the center, they found all these winds running between 45 and 60 knots, just off the New Jersey coast and points east. So the wind speeds that the Hurricane Center did with this were totally justified. I think the warnings were justified. They did a very good job all the way around. But it's always tough. And again, as I go back to what I said on the beginning, if you're somebody that forecasts shops, and nothing is more frustrating to us weather people when that other than people who forecast shop, because they come up to you, ask you what you think, and then proceed to tell you what everybody else said. Okay. Well,
I,
so and so said, and I always think it's, what am I supposed to, how am I supposed to answer that? Do you want me to
I,
say that the other person, are you expecting me to say that the other person is wrong? Are you expecting me to disparage that other person and tell you how wonderful I am? I don't know. It's right, Joe. I never
I,
I never know how to approach that
I've
because
told a story before about how when I was doing the weather for a radio station in Providence, Rhode Island, and
oh yeah,
uh, the news director used to say, "Well, uh, Copeland was Bob Copeland who did the TV weather in Boston, and like he was, I'd say like 2 to 4 inches of snow. Oh, really? Well, Bob Copeland said that we're going to get, who cares? I don't want to know what Bob Copeland,
I
you know,
know
you know,
exactly. Why don't you hire them?
uh,
Seriously.
yeah. Well, anyway,
Oh Lord. So all right, so here's the situation for the weekend. So let's make this. We'll put this down. Normally we have our Sunday morning show at 11 o'clock Eastern time. Okay, after 7 days of dealing with uh, telling the cable operator, who shall remain nameless, that it wasn't an equipment problem, but it was the fact that the internet box outside got struck by lightning last Friday, and we need somebody to come out and fix it. And they finally listened after what I think cumulatively must have been like 5 hours on the phone. So they're coming Sunday morning between 10 a.m. and noon. So let's say we are tentative to go on Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern time, but we may have to push it back if you're okay with that, Mr. Rayo.
that's all right. It obviously sounds like it's not going to be, at least for the show, it may not be an optimum situation.
No, it may not be. It may not be.
Yes.
That was subtle, like a garlic sandwich. Um, so all right, I can't seem to find. Well, you know what? We'll save Briller Jeopardy for Sunday. I can't seem to find it on the chat. Maybe it's because in
I
all the commotion he didn't send it to me. But unless you have something, did you find your
I
stuff
have
from yesterday?
I have something called instant Briller Jeopardy for you and for me,
Okay.
but he doesn't give the answer.
Oh, the answer will come after we humiliate ourselves.
Okay, so what four tropical systems beginning with the letter F has affected New York City since 1970? And of course, we've already mentioned one, or I've already mentioned at least one,
Well, you're right, Floyd.
Floyd. Now,
Huh.
I'm wondering whether I remember in 1979. I don't think though it passed to our west, so I didn't have very much influence on our weather. Frederick,
Frederick was way west. It went west
way
of the
west.
Appalachians. We never
Yeah.
saw. Yeah, it was way west, as opposed to May West. Uh,
Florence? Did Florence have an
well,
influence
that
on our?
might be. It's an F name.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. The years are there's so many. Joe. When we were younger, we had fewer hurricane seasons to remember.
Right.
Now,
And
now we, now that we're older
well,
and we've got at least 40 years of dealing with 40 seasons professionally with names, I honestly, except for the obvious ones, I can't remember anymore.
yeah,
I can't.
here's yesterday. I never used this for yesterday. Gorilla Jeopardy question, and I do have the answers for this. 10 states have recorded a high temperature of at least 120. How many of those can you name?
All
10
right,
states,
10
120.
states. So you did it yesterday. I'll try it. So that's my turn today. All right. So obviously California, Arizona.
Right,
All right. Nevada or
right,
Nevada. Um, Texas.
right. Oh,
Um,
wait a minute. Yeah, Texas. Yeah.
Texas. Jesus.
There's one on
Oklahoma.
this list. There's one on this list I can't believe.
Oklahoma and
Actually,
Kansas.
Kansas is there and Oklahoma is there.
All right. So how many have I named so far?
I don't know. I haven't been keeping count.
All right. So let's
Uh,
say, wait, California, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. So that's six. And how many have there been? 10?
10.
All right. So I'm trying to keep the streak going here. So I'll stay with my heart in the plains and we'll go to Nebraska. I think that might be pushing it.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so it wasn't
Exactly.
Nebraska. New Mexico,
New Mexico, that's 7.
7. Utah,
Utah is not on the list.
not on the list. So there's three others.
3 others, and
Well,
one
I
of them
mean,
I'm
South and North Dakota.
that's right. You've got South Dakota, North Dakota, so you have one left.
Oh, I count 8 here.
I thought you had 7 and
Oh,
you
I
said
forgot New
11.
Mexico. So there's one left.
Right. This is the one I can't believe actually got to
I'm
120.
trying to think. I'm trying to think of a state that's got at least some part of a desert in it, and I think I got them all. You know what? I'm not going to struggle with this. Just go ahead and name the state that you don't believe.
One of our former presidents came from that state, and he was elected to the office in the 90s.
In the 90s?
He was elected
Arkansas?
Arkansas. I can't believe
Really?
that. I did the double take when I saw that. How did they manage to get to 120 in Arkansas?
You know what? I really want to see that. I want to see where in Arkansas and, you know, whose thermometer it was,
Right.
you know, outside of, outside the back porch, or was it, I don't know. That's just kind of strange. Was it in the sun? I mean, I
I don't
just,
know.
this, it, I, well, if it
Maybe it's
was
like that 145 in the sun in Central Park.
right with the 106 dew point. Um, okay, so was that the only question in there?
No, there were 2, and the second question was which 5 states receive the most tornadoes? I was going to say hurricanes. The most tornadoes.
The 5 states that have the most tornadoes. Okay, so I'm going to say Texas,
1,
Oklahoma,
2,
Kansas,
3,
Nebraska.
4.
I'm trying to decide now, which way do I go? Do I go to Missouri? Do I go up one more state to South Dakota? I'm going to go, I'll go east and I'll say Missouri.
I'm
I
sorry.
should have gone north.
No, you should have gone south and east.
Oh,
No,
Arkansas again?
no, Florida.
Oh, Florida. Oh, okay. No, that makes sense. Because they get all those, sometimes they get those tropical funnel clouds and things.
And the chairman says that the temperature was 120 in Ozark, Arkansas.
In Ozark, Arkansas.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well,
Well, there you
I
go.
guess so. And why not? All right. I guess we could call it a night.
I guess
Don't
so.
don't forget, folks. You can always, if you're late to the live stream or new to the live stream, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and go to Joe Rayo's YouTube channel and subscribe to that, Joe Rayo Weather. We are also on, as we also have this show as a podcast now. It'll be up in about, half an hour or so. And you can find that on Google Podcasts, on Spotify, and a whole range of different podcast places that you can look on the internet to pick up our show. So put on your headsets, go for a walk, or listen to it in the car. We are podcasting now.
By the way, we're on my YouTube channel. It's been a struggle and it's been a long haul, but we're now up to about 830 subscribers. So we're only
You gotta get
170
that
away from
magic.
the
You get to
magic
that magic
1,000.
1,000, boy. 101,
Yes.
1,000.
So tell all your friends about Joe Rayo Weather on YouTube.
Yeah, during hurricane season, you pick up a bunch of subscribers. You get a lot of folks from a lot of different places that like to watch stuff about tropical storms. So
Yes.
this is the time. All right. Okay, so again, reminder, Sunday, tentative for 11 o'clock Eastern time, like we usually do on Sunday morning, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, Coffee with Chaffee and Rayo. But I'm getting my internet fixed, so it might get pushed back to maybe as late as 12 noon. All right, so then it'll become lunch with Chaffee and Rayo.
Yes.
All right, Joe, I'll see you on Sunday.